Another man, we'll call him John, also has an encounter with something that he can only describe as a black-eyed child while he was traveling on the back roads of Texas. And John's been in the military for over 7 years, enlisting right out of high school. He considers himself a level-headed, rational person, meaning no interest in the paranormal and all that. That is, until this encounter, which occurs during a nighttime drive on a lonely Texas backroad in the summer of 2009. Now, John's family goes back several generations in the Lone Star State, and because of their long history there, John has relatives all over Texas from east to west. Each time he gets leave from the military, he heads home to visit family. In 2009, John goes home on leave to visit his parents in the Houston area. After a couple of days with them, he decides to take a drive to West Texas to visit some cousins. John loves driving the back roads of Texas, especially late at night. There are very few cars to contend with, and he says it gives him a sense of peace to drive under the starry sky. John has never been a heavy sleeper, and he can really stay up for long periods of time without needing any sleep. But this is a long trip even for him. So he plans to make the trip in 2 legs, spending a day with a friend from high school halfway to his destination. He drives his first day, gets to his buddies, and leaves his buddy's house that evening after dinner so he can make it to his cousin's house by early morning the next day. Full tank of gas, full thermos of coffee, John sets out for the long drive. And it was a perfect night, he said. There isn't a cloud in the sky, so the stars are super bright. But he's still taking his time. He's driving through deer country, and they tend to cross the road late at night, and he doesn't want to hit one. Around 3 a.m, John hits a long stretch of road where the houses and the lights are few and far between. And although he's wide awake, he still just likes to drink coffee while he's driving. And at this point, he had finished off half of the thermos that he had already refilled at a 24-hour mark. So it is time to answer the call of nature. He hits a length of road that is long and straight, and not a single car in sight in either direction. He slows down his truck and parks just off the side of the highway. He walks a few steps away from the road and takes care of his business. And when he's done, he just stands there for a few minutes and stretches, kind of working out some of the kinks, and takes a minute to take in the beautiful starry night. Takes all of maybe 5 minutes max. Deciding it's time to get back on the road, John passes in front of his truck and reaches for the door handle and jerks back with a start. Standing just beyond the driver's door is a young boy. The boy doesn't move a muscle. If John's eyes hadn't been adjusted to the dark, he probably wouldn't have even seen him. But he sees right away that it's just a kid, so he calms down a little bit. He shakes his head and says, "Geez, kid, you scared the hell out of me." Not missing a beat, the kid says to John,
"I want to get in your truck."
John doesn't say anything at first. He isn't sure what to say. But he feels a cold chill. He pauses and takes a breath, looking at the boy. His mind is racing, trying to figure out, where did this kid come from? John turns and glances around in each direction, looking for any sign of a house. Even out here, most people leave a nightlight on after dark. Nothing. He scans the road too. He sees 0 cars in either direction. The boy still hasn't moved, and again repeats his cold statement.
"I want to get in your truck now."
The hair on the back of John's neck stands up. He's got a bad feeling in the pit of his stomach. He tries to reason with his brain, thinking things like, he's just a kid, there's nothing to be afraid of, but nothing's working. He can't kick that feeling that just keeps getting stronger. John tries to smile and decides to try to talk to the boy and find out exactly why he is alone in the middle of nowhere. "You live around here, kid?" The boy stands completely still and responds in the same monotone voice,
"Just let me get in your truck." We can go for a ride.
John asks, "Do you need to get home, kid? Whereabouts do you live?" And the boy remains planted in his spot between the road and John's truck.
We can get in your truck now. It won't take too long.
John leans forward a little to try to see as many details as he can in this low light. Now, based on the kid's height and size, he guesses that the kid was about 10 years old, wearing a dull white shirt that looks a little bit too big for him, tucked into dark pants. His hair is dark and shaggy, but it's not long. He can't really see the boy's eyes, but his skin is super light and pale. But that is about the best that John can do in the low light. The nervous feeling is growing more and more intense inside of John. The boy still hasn't moved from his spot, but again repeats his request, more insistent this time.
Just open the door and tell me to get in. We'll have a short ride.
John just wants to run and leave his truck and that boy as far behind as he can. He's squinting his eyes with this feeling like he's trying to shake off a punch or something. And he shakes his head and tries to clear his thoughts. And right then, John knows it is time to go. He looks at his truck, then back at the kid. "I don't think so, kid," he answers. He takes a step forward, just enough to get the driver's door open, and keeps looking at the boy as he quickly jumps into the driver's seat. Puts the key in the ignition, starts it up, and looks out through his driver's side window. The boy is now standing right beside the driver's door, staring in at him. Never before and never since has John felt like he did when that kid was glaring at him through the window. He throws the truck in gear and floors it. A couple miles down the road, he slows down and pulls off the road again. He looks down at his hands and sees that he's holding the steering wheel so tight that his hands are totally white. Takes a deep breath, tries to calm down. All of a sudden, he feels ridiculous and starts to question himself. Why am I running from a kid? Maybe he really needed some help. But something about that kid had caused a very primal response in John, and his fight or flight response had totally taken over. But for the life of him, he can't figure out why. John composes himself for another moment, then turns the truck around. He is determined to go back, find the kid, and get some answers. If the boy is hurt or in trouble, John can at least get him home. He puts his high beams on and drives slowly back to the spot where he had encountered the boy. Now, John has a pretty good sense of distance and of his surroundings, and it only takes him one pass to find the exact spot where he'd pulled off the first time. He's driving slow and is shining a high-powered flashlight out the window. He passes that light all over looking for the kid. He drives past the spot, down about a half mile, and then comes back. And the boy is nowhere to be found, but he thinks he has to be close by. A kid that small can't move that fast. After a couple passes up and down the road, John pulls back over at the exact spot where he had parked the first time. He gets out of the truck and uses his flashlight to scan the area in all directions. Standing on that deserted road, his mind flashes back to the image of that kid staring in the window at him, and it gives him chills all over again. He gets back in the truck and drives away, but he makes it a point to look at the next mile marker. He wants to know and remember where that spot is. John had originally planned to stop for an early morning breakfast, but instead continues driving until he reaches his destination. It's really early in the morning, and thankfully, his relatives had left the side door unlocked for him. Knowing he's not going to be able to sleep after what happened that night, he just sits down in the living room and turns on the TV. He just wants to distract himself with something from the normal world, something stupid, something simple. He just wants that kid out of his head. And by late morning, John is pretty successful at pushing it all to the back of his mind. He is enjoying his family, talking and joking around, And then that kid pops into his head. He sees him standing there, staring in the window of his truck. He just can't shake it, and he can't understand it. When John finally heads back to Houston, he drives during the day. He wants to make sure he hits that spot in bright sunshine. He finds it and stops, trying to see if there are any houses close by that the kid could have come from. But the nearest houses are well off the beaten path and at least a few miles from the point of where he had this chat with this boy. John doesn't stay there very long. He has no intention of being anywhere near that area when the sun goes down. Nor does he even want to drive in the dark anymore. In fact, he completely stops driving at night after this encounter, suddenly preferring the bright light of day for his travels. He still feels haunted by the creepy image of the boy peering in through the window of his truck. He's never really been able to get that image out of his head. He can forget about it for a while, but it always seems to come back. And he's still looking for an explanation. How did that little kid, without really doing anything, manage to make John feel so scared? It made no sense. John believed his military training had prepared him for anything. Yet he found himself completely unprepared for a simple encounter with a strange child on a quiet back road in West Texas.